Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us for Heart Gallery's monthly webinar, Guiding Connections, Facilitating Support Group for Caregivers. We are so thankful you could join us today. We're very excited to have Christy Sowell from the Fostering Collective with us today. The Fostering Collective is a nonprofit in East Texas that recruits and supports foster adoptive and kinship families. Christy is passionate about navigating the path of finding the best resources for each one of her children, and in the process has found a love for helping other families get the Christ-centered training and resources they need to help their children thrive. Christy is open to, if you have any questions throughout her presentation, please feel free to ask them. I'll be using you can use the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat, or you can also come off mute if you would like. But also at the end, we will have also time for some of those other questions, follow-ups if you want to wait till the end. But at any point, if you have a question, please feel free to use the chat. And then I'll be following with everyone after the training through email. But for now, please give it up for Christy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Wow, thank you for having me today. I'm not so good on the Zoom. I like to physically see people, so bear with me if I mess up on all the navigating dual monitors here and all the things, but hopefully you can see my screen. And as we focus on today, facilitating support groups for caregivers. And so just a little bit about myself real quick. I am an adoptive mom. So we have one biological son who is actually now 23, and he is on the spectrum. So I learned very early on how to parent, differently. And then 12 years ago through foster care, we adopted a sibling group of 4 girls. They're actually now 6, they just had its birthday month in March. So we're now at 16, 17, 19, and 22 years old. So yeah, teen girls are tough. And if you name it, we've experienced it all in our home. And so as I felt like God called me to do more, and that did mean bring more kids into my home. So 7 years ago, we started the Fostering Collective here in East Texas, and we're just challenged by our board at the very beginning just to get to know our people, and understand why community is so important for our families. So over 60% of foster families quit after the first year due to lack of support. And then if you think about that, when families go into the adoption piece, they become super isolated because you're dealing with a lot of hard things that these kids face, and so we become isolated. And we tend to, people don't understand why our teenager has this big hard behavior, or a 5-year-old is acting out at church, and so and the school is calling for the 8-year-old and all the time because they're disrupting and they don't have friends, and all these big hard complexities that come with those big hard behaviors, and we begin to grieve and experience. So there's a lot of grief and loss that come from entering into that adoption phase. So as we're talking about supporting these foster and adoptive families, we've really got to help them understand that importance of being a part of a community of people who just get it. And how do we help them understand that? But we just got to talk about the why a little bit first before we get there. And I want y'all to know that, and if you can, Cassandra, help me monitor too, because I may not be so great at looking in the chat, but you're welcome to unmute at any point and jump in and ask a question. You are welcome to send a question through the chat. If you'll just help me, Cassandra, see a question, feel free to interrupt in that manner. But I want this just to be a time of interaction where we can just really navigate through some things together, and it not just be me talking for 30 minutes, because that would be boring. But understanding, that why is so important. And then how do we create these effective groups for these families that are dealing with really hard things? And So the first thing that our board challenged us the first year when we were becoming a nonprofit is, who are your people? So we literally got to know people in our community. We would do little fun things to get to know them. We immediately started a mom support group because the moms would come, but dads are like, I'm not interested in going support group, I'm out. And we've actually since then renamed our groups to be called community groups, because our dads will come hang out with dads to go bowling. So by inviting them to go bowling or axe throwing, they actually then get to know each other, and they establish that trust. But who are the people? Who are the people in the community? And how did we connect with those? By connecting with all the child placing agencies in the area, and them pointing families to us, by hosting free fun things. And I know we always talk about free. You never know who's going to actually join us when it is doesn't cost anything. So sometimes even just charging, like at one of our support groups, we charge $2, and that's per family, but know that if they don't pay it, it's okay. But that for our family support groups, that just gives buy-ins, because we serve pizza and we don't have a ton of leftover. But that $2, times 5 people, that's $10. It's nothing, but in the grand scheme of things, it gives a little bit of buy-in of that it's important. But knowing who are your people, who do we need to serve, how do you connect with them? So through that of learning who. And also, as you're building that community, I always laughingly say, feed them and they will come. So having food is always helpful. So moms don't have to cook, dads don't have to cook, even if it's just a snack. But through getting to know who we are collaboratively, we have started in the East Texas, and I'm for Region 4 in the East Texas area, but we now have 7 mom support groups, 3 dad, 1 family, and 1 kinship caregiver support group. So as we began to grow, our moms groups only met 1 night a week. Well, some of them couldn't come on Tuesdays, so then we multiplied out of a leader out of that group to then start another group. And we never but thankfully we have enough of a staff here now that all of us can rotate in and out. And but it's just made a huge impact. And the groups aren't super big. I want you to know, like, we don't have 50 moms that show up to one, because if you get 20 or more in a room, you kind of see, okay, we probably need to multiply that. And maybe perhaps because you want it to be intimate. So then we also learn not only who, but what do they need? And so we began to poll and ask and talk to our families, what are you interested in learning about? And so over the course of 12, we meet most months. We don't meet in months like spring break, back to school. Well, some of our groups do. And May, like, nobody ever puts anything on extra on our calendars for May, at the end of school. But so we poll our families. When can you meet? What topics do you want to talk about? What's going on in your home? What do you need to learn more about? We're very intentional. So they're not just a community group that comes together. And, if you typically have a group and you don't have something specific to talk about, then you have somebody that might hijack, and then it could potentially become specifically focused on just their struggles. I call them throw up sessions, where somebody can just come in and they're just wanting to just talk about they're really hard, or bash a certain, like if they're struggling with their child placing agency or CPS or something. We try to eliminate all of that by having a specific topic. Now we start out the group where you come in and everybody's hanging out and talking together, and then we give at least 15 to 30 minutes of the time that's specifically topic focused. So I just wanted to show you, for instance, what we do with something like that. So we'll prepare for each one of our group and we send it out. we felt like our families were just struggling with our kids. Just how can we keep them from how can we de-escalate? That was just a great topic one month that we had 2 months ago. So we'll create this one-page handout, because if you could bring a bunch of like handouts or a bunch of books or all these things, I know when I'm struggling, I was struggling with my daughter de-escalating. And if you would have handed me a book or told me listen to this podcast or those things, I would have just had a full-blown meltdown, because I couldn't handle it at that time. A lot of our families are in crisis. And so one pagers are great. So we just come up with a one pager that just talks about some, we give some little TBRI nuggets, typically, some tips, and then of course, reminding, more importantly, to take the pause. In this particular month, we then actually took this is something that's from SAMA. So a lot of us has probably had some SAMA training at some point, but this is the script that sort of goes along with it, and we would literally went around in a circle and we were practicing this. We were giving hands-on tools. And then, of course, do's and don'ts. This was just a little card that we made that they could keep in their wallets, so we give little take homes, something like that, but something that's very practical, little nugget. And then also we could take it a little deeper. So, and then I want to back up for just a second. So forgive me that I didn't mention this. Well, I guess we're just not going to go back, are we? Let's see. Okay, so there we go. Excuse me. So when we give this specific topic, we start out the month on our family support group. And so what our family support group is this is a very community building activity too, because you have moms and dads and kids all in the room. So we eat dinner, we offer pizza, $2, again, to just buy in. So just gives us a little bit of a head count. And then we will bring in a professional to talk. We actually got a grant that covers this. Of course, you could probably use post-adopt grant to cover this. But we pay we partner with local therapists in the community that come and meet. School, and then elementary school, the older and younger, we have the toddlers, and then the nursery. And we actually certify babysitters also. And so our certified babysitters come in and they're buddies in the classroom. We use volunteers as buddies too. So we probably have a 2 to 3 1 ratio of adults to students. And we typically have 100 to 150 people that show up at this, and we have a church that helps out. But this is huge community building that happens. And the kids, because we have a grant that covers it, they're doing a lot of hands-on fun things, and but they don't even realize that they're in a like a support group type setting, because it's fun, and it blows my mind. The kids that want to come back every month are the teenagers. It blows my mind, and their friends at school, and they want to come and be a part and do life outside of these groups because of what has been built. And so then we take this topic and we can dig a little bit deeper in our mom and dad groups, our kinship caregiver groups. So then we can sit in the circle, and we wouldn't do this with the teenagers. They're talking about their calming techniques that go in line, and then everybody goes home at the family collective and they learn some tools to work out. But then we dive deeper in our mom and dad groups. So we can talk about what a safety plan looks like, and just teaching them to come up with solutions and ideas of, so, when I'm de-escalating, what can I already have in place to keep myself from going and us having to call the police, or us having to, go to a hospitalization visit, or so that kind of would wrap up like what that month looks like for us. And we have variation of topics. We've done sensory. We just got off the month, or this month we're talking about resiliency. And again, pulling that in, asking our families what they want and what they need really helps. Sometimes it's just fun that month because our dads are like, now they've gotten to where they love to talk about the specific topics. But in the beginning, it was just building that community and establishing that trust by doing fun things. So how do you, real quick, does anybody have any questions so far? Is there anything in the chat that I'm missing? Okay, I'm going to keep going then. So then how do you keep people coming? And what does that mean and look like? So, if we offer each month, we send out a newsletter. So we tell everybody what's coming up when everybody's meeting. And then we post it on our socials. Well, those two things do not bring people to come. They just don't. We have to be intentional in building those relationships. So being intentional, just really getting to know the family outside of, so we do a lot of one-on-one check-ins. Even sometimes it's just a quick text message, but following up, checking in with people, seeing how things are going. When you are being intentional in doing things like that, you may realize, oh, they need a resource, and then connecting them to other resources in the community. So building those relationships outside of just our families is super helpful. Like getting to know those counselors at our family collective. A lot of our families see those counselors now. So they utilize them, and we're able to pay those counselors again using some of this funding that we have from grants. But the most impactful things have been little things like when a family, like DoorDash gift cards are my jam, and I text because that's something you can buy and instantly text. I mean, it literally takes me 3 minutes, but those have hugely impacted relationships, and people see, oh, that they really do care, and providing those meals is just made just a huge difference. And then also building trust, because there's a lot of secondary trauma involved in being a caregiver from kids from hard places. So we don't trust people. We don't trust relationships. I personally lost, my mother-in-law was a counselor here in town, and she said we were ruining our lives by adopting girls through foster care. And so it took me a while to trust counselors, because I'm like, because she sees all these behaviors. So building that trust disarms the fear that we have. And so, doing that by playfully engaging. We play a lot of games at our support groups. Again, we may only spend 10 minutes talking about a specific topic. Sometimes we're just playing a game, but doing little icebreaker things. But just some of the minute to win it games are amazing, because they're cheap and nothing, and moms just laugh. Building that laughter, just helps us to be regulated, and just being intentional and building relationships and establishing trust helps you sustain those groups, because people want to keep coming back, and they invite their friends to come back. So, we have the 3 E's here at the Fostering Collective. And one thing that we really talk about is how we can empower our families. So how do we empower our families to keep going? And again, it's through these support groups and through encouraging them. So we just came off of an event called Night of Heroes, where we invite all of our support groups to come together, and we have a red carpet, and the adults have a fun banquet, and we played games. We played Family Feud, and our families were, playing Family Feud with each other, and the kids, we had just a fun night of the kids being together. And it was basically like a mini VBS, if you'll call it, but just having those family events. And if you're going to community partners and say, hey, we want to do this for our families, they're all over supporting it. But just support can be something as small as, again, those DoorDash gift cards. And we have a freezer up here at our office that we have some church ladies that make casseroles, and I send casseroles home with moms all the time. They're like, all the time. It's just something so small can be so impactful, but just supporting them and meeting them where they are and listening to what they have to say, but also resources. So we've built actually, and you can go to the fosteringcollective.org and see this, but we have a virtual resource library, and I actually took just a OneNote, and there's a link on our OneNote. So it's nothing that's huge and super fancy. I hope to make it look a little better one day, but I change it all the time. I add things to the resource library every day. But you can click on there and you can go, I need a counselor in our area that takes Superior. My child's struggling with lying. We have book recommendations. We have all of these handouts that we create, which subtopics. So, anytime we're talking about one of those specific topics, we post on our socials, like the whole month of de-escalation, we're posting little podcasts, we're posting videos, we're posting books, we're giving them those resources in small. We also find, like I just found a new place yesterday that we added to our family resource library. That is somebody that has a psychological nurse practitioner that takes Superior in East Texas. That's like winning the lottery. And so we just add that to our family resource library. It's fluid. Everybody can look on it at any time. I can copy what's in there and send it via email. If I'm working one-on-one with a family and talking with them outside of support groups, I can easily walk over there during support group time and pull things off of it. But just providing those resources, but not overwhelming, just having one little place that you can have it and share. And we also have like a mom support group, or we call it ourselves, we've always called it Mom, Dad, and Family Collective, because we're the Fostering Collective, so we're real original with all of our names. But we during those times, we I forgot what I was going to say. I don't even know where I went. Forgive me there. But at our Mom, Dad, and Family collectives, we can share those resources out to people through that. And we also have support, because everything is not just Tyler centered. So we've got 2 and 3 hours away some of our groups, and so that's helpful that it's just all in that one safe place. But our mom collective, here's where I was going. We have a Facebook group, and that Facebook group, even though it's probably got 200 moms in East Texas, I think there's like 220 moms on there. So that's just a place where we post ideas, we post who do you recommend for things. And there's even a community that's just built on that. But then we invite each other, and people have connected through there to then come to the things that meet in person. And once a year, we have a brunch that we invite all of the support groups to come together for. But then, of course, continuing to network, because I'm a firm believer it's not what you know, but who you know. So bringing in those resources. Sometimes we want, we had somebody that taught brain gym that came and did brain gym with us one time, somebody on EFT tapping. So if there's a special, we've had school professionals that help with ARDS come in. So we can be topically focused and networking, and again, providing that outside of community group time, but then bringing it in. And our dads enjoyed one time just having somebody that just helped us, that came in and talked about financial advising and also legal advice, because a lot of times our kids, our teenagers, they're get into things where we have to ask legal advice, and just to have those attorneys that help our families keep us all safe and stay safe. And then we encourage, and this is where I just feel like we spend a lot of our time, is just encouraging those families. There's a lot of shame that comes with having kids from hard places. And most of us as a mom, we feel like we have failed when our children are responding in different ways than we feel like they should. And we know that there's purpose behind that. When most of our families come in, and a lot of times they don't end up at my desk unless they're in a crisis. So and that's typically when I get connected to them. And the first thing, I'm not going, okay, what is your child doing? And let's give them some TBR nuggets. No. What are you doing, Mom, for you? And most of the time they're doing nothing for themselves. So Mom, I try to help them to feel seen and heard and valued. And maybe we take some of our funding and or even just connecting because they have insurance. What are you doing? You're going to need to get into some counseling. So we're doing a lot of parent coaching. And but Mom, what are you doing for you? And just pointing her back to that all of the time and helping her to see that she's got to put herself first so that she can handle all of the hard that her family is facing and help keep her tank full. So how can we do that? And that's by encouraging her, because our families, they're good parents. They're just doing really hard things. And then just reminding them, so often over and over and over again, you are not alone. And so what that means that you're alone is just that follow-up text messaging. Most of them are totally okay with it being a text message, but sometimes it is a phone call, shooting them a little Starbucks gift card, all of those little things. But we've have tried really hard here to build community, because this life is hard. And we can just make a difference doing it together. So so then engaging, that's just all I just said without doing engaging the community by keeping them going and building that community and understanding that we can do things better if we're doing it together. So, and building that community again means, offering those little things. Again, it doesn't have to be big and super expensive. Most of the things that we've tried to invest a big amount of money in, just like it is with any of our kids. When we try to do something big, it flops. So it can be little things like meeting in the park. It can be little things like just opening, we have space in our office, but just a lot of the best moments we have is because we do have a closet that has a family resource center and a sensory library, or just the kids are playing in the sensory area and moms and I are talking and just building that community and doing it together.